There is a growing conversation around the future of Sam Hauser with the Boston Celtics, and the latest reports are starting to raise a serious question inside league circle. Could this actually be the final stretch of Hauser's time in Boston? The discussion is gaining traction after new information surfaced about teams monitoring his situation closely. Before we break this down, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and press the hype button if you want more fast and reliable NBA updates about the Celtics. According to Dan Favale from Bleacher Report, two teams have already been identified as possible offseason suitors for Hauser. The New Orleans Pelicans and the Washington Wizards are reportedly keeping a close eye on the Celtics forward as trade conversations around the league slowly begin to form ahead of the summer. Favale described Hauser as a shooter who fits almost anywhere, the kind of floor spacer every contender wants in today's NBA. That reputation did not appear overnight. Hauser has built it through consistent production and efficient shooting. This season alone, Hauser has appeared in 62 games and has delivered exactly what Boston asks from him: reliable perimeter shooting and smart positioning within the offense. He is shooting 41.2% from the field and 39.1% from three-point range, while attempting 6.7 shots from deep per game. Those numbers matter even more when you consider that Hauser has stepped into the starting lineup 34 times this season, proving he can handle a bigger role when needed. His recent performances reinforce that consistency. On March 8, he scored 15 points against Cleveland, while hitting 5 of 10 shots from three-point range. Shortly after that, he followed with 11 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists in a game against San Antonio. Production like this does not go unnoticed around the league. But here is where the situation becomes more intriguing. Favale also noted that Boston is no longer operating in strict tax avoidance mode, which could make Hauser harder to acquire than some teams expect. At the same time, the Wizards still have financial flexibility below the tax line, which could allow them to enter a potential multi-team deal if Boston decides to pursue a bigger move. So the real question now is simple and urgent. If teams like New Orleans and Washington are already monitoring Sam Hauser closely, could the Celtics eventually consider using his value as part of a larger offseason trade? Or is Boston preparing to keep one of its most reliable shooters for another championship push? What do you think the Celtics should do with Sam Hauser? A new discussion is starting to gain strength around Payton, Pritchard, and the Boston Celtics. And this time, the rumor is coming from a team that is clearly looking for backcourt help. League observers are now asking a direct question: could Pritchard become a real trade target for the Houston Rockets this offseason? This possibility is beginning to circulate in league conversation, and it immediately raises curiosity about Boston's plans for one of its most productive guards this season. According to Dan Favale from Bleacher Report, Pritchard is viewed as one of the logical trade targets for Houston as the franchise evaluates ways to strengthen its offense. The report places him alongside Tyler Herro of the Miami Heat and Ryan Rollins of the Milwaukee Bucks as guards who could fit the system, led by head coach Ime Udoka. There is an important detail. Udoka already coached Pritchard in Boston during the 2021 and 2022 season. That familiarity makes the rumor more interesting because Houston knows exactly what type of player they would be pursuing. Pritchard is in the middle of a very strong 2025 and 2026 campaign. In 63 games, he has averaged 16.9 points, 4.1 rebounds, and 5.4 assists, while shooting 46.1% from the field and 36.2% from three-point range. Those numbers explain why his name is now appearing in league discussion. A guard who can score, create offense, and stretch the floor always attracts attention. But there is a major obstacle in this scenario. Brad Stevens gave Pritchard a team-friendly contract that keeps him under control for 2 more seasons after the current year. Around the league, executives know the deal has real value for Boston. Moving a productive guard on a bargain contract is not a simple decision for a contender. Now, the pressure question starts to build. If Houston truly believes Pritchard is the type of guard who can elevate their offense, they may test Boston with a serious offer during the offseason. The Celtics would then face a difficult calculation between roster balance and long-term value. So here is the moment that raises urgency around this rumor. If the Rockets decide to push aggressively for Payton Pritchard this summer, would the Celtics actually consider listening to trade offer for one of their most efficient playmakers? Or is this a situation where Boston shuts the door immediately? Weeks after the trade deadline, a quiet conclusion is beginning to form around the Boston Celtics. Many analysts are starting to say the Celtics may have won the deadline, but not for the reason most people expected. When the deadline arrived, Boston made several moves, yet none of them looked like the kind of aggressive transaction that usually defines a championship push. Instead, the front office led by Brad Stevens focused on financial flexibility and roster balance. The Celtics completed multiple deals in the final hours before the deadline, and the primary objective was clear: get below the luxury tax and maintain long-term flexibility. The only real change to the roster was the swap that brought Nikola Vucevic in exchange for Anthony Simons. At the time, many observers described the move as modest, maybe even a marginal upgrade. Then another complication appeared when Vucevic dealt with injury, while reserve big man Luka Garza started to draw attention. Solid minutes. So why are more people now saying Boston may have quietly won the deadline? Because while the Celtics stayed patient, almost every other contender around the league stayed quiet as well. The Detroit Pistons added Kevin Huerter, but that move barely changed their rotation. The New York Knicks replaced the injured Miles McBride with defensive guard Jose Alvarado, a useful addition, but not a major shift in power. Even the Cleveland Cavaliers made a bold move for James Harden, yet many analysts are still debating whether that truly improves their playoff ceiling compared to the guard they moved, Darius Garland. And while all of this was happening, Boston was preparing for something that no trade could replicate: the return of Jason Tatum. Tatum was not a trade acquisition, but his return from injury effectively inserted one of the best players in the league back into the lineup right after the deadline passed. Now the situation feels different. No contender in the Eastern Conference made a move that clearly shifts the balance of power, and the Celtics suddenly look stronger simply by getting healthy at the right moment. Which leads to the question that is starting to build urgency around the league. If Boston stayed patient while everyone else hesitated, and now they are adding Jason Tatum back into the rotation, did the Celtics actually plan this quiet deadline strategy all along? And if that is true, could this decision end up being the move that defines the entire championship race? A strong opinion about the Boston Celtics trade involving Nikola Vucevic is now gaining attention across the league. The move that sent Anthony Simons away created debate from the moment it happened, and now a blunt explanation is circulating about why the Celtics actually made that decision. On a recent episode of his show, Bill Simmons addressed the trade and offered a direct view of the situation. According to Simmons, the conversation about this deal cannot ignore one major factor: the return of Jason Tatum. Once Tatum returned to the lineup, the offensive structure of Boston naturally shifted back toward him as the main engine of the team. That immediately changes the role of guards around him. Simons is a dynamic scorer, a guard capable of creating his own shot and attacking defenses off the dribble. But with Tatum handling a large portion of the offense, Simons would likely see his usage drop significantly. Inside the organization, Simons was respected. Coaches trusted him, teammates supported him, and he accepted the role of sixth man while improving defensively. But according to the reasoning presented publicly by Brad Stevens, the decision was not only about performance, it was also about roster balance. Boston wanted another reliable center to stabilize the rotation at the 5 position, especially with heavy minutes falling on players like Neemias Queta and Luka Garza. There was another layer that cannot be ignored: financial strategy. By completing this trade, the Celtics positioned themselves to move below the luxury tax line, opening flexibility for future moves and avoiding long-term financial penalties under the current collective bargaining agreement. So the truth behind the Vucevic trade becomes clearer when you connect all the pieces. It was about roster balance, financial control, and preparing the team for the moment when Jason Tatum returned to lead the offense again. But here is the question that keeps this debate alive inside the NBA. If Anthony Simons was productive and respected in Boston, did the Celtics truly make the right long-term decision by prioritizing flexibility and depth over keeping his scoring ability in the rotation? If you want more urgent Celtics analysis like this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and press the hype button right now.